Hi there, traders. This is Brad Gilbert with the Daily Market Insight for Monday, the 31st of July. All right, now interesting end of the week with the and the Asia session really coming alive with the Bank of Japan, constantly talking about changing policy, a few tweaks here and there. We're seeing, some information released saying they might do it. Dollar yen's going down, up and down. Anyway, what it does is it creates extra opportunities across the all the instruments. Right now, I can tell you, I've been trading for 35 years. In the day, in the early 90s, 90 to 95, or even sort of 90 through to 2000, the yen is the beast, right? It dominates global markets when everything else is quiet. And we are starting to see the yen really putting its head up above everything else. And that creates a huge amount of opportunities on dollar yen, as well as all the yen crosses, and that sort of filters through the rest of the markets. It really brings life to the global markets themselves. So now, before I go through the data this week, just have a look here, right? And I've spoken to a few traders, right? And they got a little bit sort of chopped up last week, right? But if you look at the say looking at the global markets, okay, looking overall, the dollar index, okay, it doesn't look like anything's happened. Business as usual, still on the trend. Euro, likewise. Gold is sort of coming to a head with a bit of sideways trading. We're starting to see oil pick up a little bit. And the equity markets, well, nothing to see here, just plain sailing to the top side. And you got a bit more of a steady market there on Bitcoin, right? Which is a little bit more reassuring than the usual 10,000 up, 10,000 down. So looking at those markets there, you're like, oh, okay, they've got sort of trending markets, right? But if you get too caught up in the day-to-day activity, this is what you would have been dealing with, right? Really bad price, well, not bad price action, but we're getting false breaks both sides of the markets. A lot of the markets are on edge around what is going to happen with the US dollar policy, and then also filtering through as these other central banks come to the forefront, the RBA, which is this week, the Bank of England. You've got, we've had the BOJ, we've got ECB, everyone's sort of making announcements, but we aren't going anywhere, right? But we are seeing a little bit aggressive price action across a lot of these instruments, even the equity markets, right? On the hourlies, it ain't so easy as we know. Now, this may be, I'll tell you what, oil does look very nice on the hourly charts. So what does that do for us? Well, we need to focus on the longer term trends, like you always should be, and then factor in the potential shifts in policy or the major economic data releases as they come through, right? And this is important, obviously, not just for the major pairs, but also for obviously just global markets in general. And this is, once again, this is your hourly charts. As you can see, and I had a lot of work to do last week, right? And I'm not talking about just doing the analysis, but also looking at the where the price action was. As I said, dollar yen's coming into it. We're seeing some false breaks here on a number of instruments. The dollar index and euro obviously working together. Dollar Swiss back above that sort of short-term resistance line. And Aussie and Kiwi, well, they're just getting belted, right? Big drops in the commodity prices, iron ore, copper, really putting pressure on Aussie Kiwi, right? The commodity currencies themselves, and dollar CAD not far away from its sort of distant Aussie Kiwi cousins. It's taking a back seat there as well. Funnily enough, against the rise in oil, right? You'd think dollar CAD would start moving down with that rise in oil prices, but it's not at the moment. So what I'm taking away from this is, and what I'm trying to tell you is, keep an eye on the longer term perspective. Okay, as I've just changed over here to the daily charts. Now, these charts here, I have not touched them, right? And as you can see, they are building up quite nicely. We've got great levels here. Euro, sterling in particular, right? The dollar index also coming back to a key level. Dollar yen, well, it's on the precipice of a big move to the downside. And dollar CAD, well, it's sort of not quite mid-range as is Aussie and Kiwi, but they don't look as gorgeous as euro and sterling, right? We've got those trend lines on the downside, nice uptrends. We just need the catalyst to get these things moving down, and then it's game on. So when you look at your charts here, actually dollar Swiss also moving down nicely. So when I look at the daily charts at the start of a week, I might be trying to identify the best trending instruments To me, it's the dollar index, dollar Swiss, euro, right, and sterling. These pairs are active and live. The other ones, well, dollar yen, it's got to be on your radar, but dollar yen's a little bit tricky. It's like trading dollar CAD. Okay, with that relationship with oil, etc., it can be a bit crazy. Whereas Aussie and Kiwi, they aren't really in my good books. All right, now let's just have a look here what we've got as far as the trading opportunities for this week, right? And I've updated my global markets page just to give you a bit more of a clearer picture here on the layout here. A bigger text. It's actually helping me as much as it might help you. So here you're going to be able to see a little bit clearer percentage change, 1 week change, month to date, 3 month, year to date. And I've also moved the Euro, Sterling, Aussie, Kiwi to the top here of my majors, right? So all these other instruments down here are the dollar is the base currency. So if you see uniformity there from the dollar index down, you know things are all well and good. And at the moment, you can see all the majors, well, it's not like a uniform activity as far as the US dollar goes. All right, now let's just have a look at this week's major trading opportunities. And you can piece together, right, where the opportunities, the instruments that you have a preference for, and that also fit in with your sort of lifestyle schedule. Don't be getting up at 2 or 3 a.m. trying to chase all these numbers because you'll come unstuck. Fatigue, it will impact you quite a lot. Monday, okay, we've got the Chinese manufacturing numbers. Now that's going to be important for the Aussie, Kiwi, and China or dollar China. Then you've got the EU GDP and inflation rate. Now these are flash numbers, right? So they can definitely come in and impact, give the euro a little bit of direction. As I said, we've got a really good trend line there on euro. So anything to me with euro in it is important. Obviously, the US numbers will give us the impact there as well. So Monday, a nice cruisy start to the day with a couple of releases. Tuesday, it sort of hots up. Now, this RBA rate decision, it's borderline. I'm going with no change. It'll be a huge political backlash. They've already announced changes to the RBA interest rate or rate decision process next year. They're going to go towards more the Fed every 4 to 6 weeks, 8 decisions a year instead of 11. Anyway, there's a few other changes there, but I tell you what, it's become like the US, a very political decision. So the recent governor, he's gone, and then his deputy is taking over. So RBA rate decision obviously going to be very important for the Aussie crosses, and then the ISM manufacturing numbers, right? Tier 2, Tier 3, whatever you like to call it, it has potential to really impact the US dollar and US equities. And then we come into where the week really sort of kicks off. Kiwi employment numbers, the BOJ policy meeting minutes, and Swiss consumer confidence. You know what? The Kiwi employment numbers are big. There's only a couple of numbers in New Zealand that really come out, but don't forget, we've got that low liquidity situation. The BOJ minutes could be a left field event, okay? They have been telling us that a policy change is coming, but we don't know when. And maybe the Swissy consumer confidence numbers can give a bit of spice to the Swiss and the euro. And then it really starts to hot up with the Bank of England rate decision, the US jobless claims, and then you've got US IM services and US factory orders there as well, right? So the US dollar or the major currency pairs will be massively in focus, as is sterling, and US equities will be rocking and rolling by that stage. But the major, phone's ringing. The major focus here, obviously, first week of the first Friday of each month, the US non-farm payrolls. Unfortunately, this month, we've got the Canadian numbers out at the same time, right? So very tricky to trade dollar CAD because both releases obviously impact the dollar against the CAD. So if you're looking at the CAD, maybe CAD crosses might be a bit more of a go, or just stick to the major currency pairs. Once again, we've got trending euro and sterling, Swiss and dollar index. They've got to be your go-to pairs, particularly to start the week. Now that can change over the course of the week, but with great technical setups, especially long term, you've got to be looking at them. The CAD IV PMI to finish the week, and obviously the CAD dollar and US equities there, the major focus. So there's plenty to play for. Now, these are the major opportunities. Now, it doesn't mean there aren't opportunities in between these events, but if you are looking for key momentum shifts, I believe that's where you're going to see them. All right. Now, just keep an eye on the, as you just go through the normal day, depending on where you are, the US North American equity futures usually give us a bit of an insight into what's going on with the, global equities, and that rolls through into the Asian, then in the European equities. And we are seeing a bit of a slight uptick here on the US equity futures. I wouldn't like to say we're seeing a risk on day where Euro, Sterling, Aussie, Kiwi are rallying. They aren't up much, but you're not seeing the same uniform action across all the dollar pairs as well. So that's a bit of a question mark. I would sit back, have a look at the Chinese numbers. If you see a short-term opportunity, particularly say on the Aussie, Kiwi, or China, then there's an opportunity there. Otherwise, I'd sit back and wait for the EU data, or if anything, look for the Tuesday's markets, right? After the markets reconnected after the weekend, it can be somewhat a little bit easier after that. All right, guys, that's about it for me. For all you Women's World Cup of football watchers, Australia versus Canada tonight, go the Matildas. All right, guys, have a good one. Cheerio.